YouTube, welcome back to another video. So this is Ice Wallenstein. This is arguably the worst character. Well, I take that back. Not arguably. The worst character from the crossover, but she was the free unit, so you can't really complain, you know? She was the free unit. You basically got her 6 stars just from playing the event. And that's kind of the end of it, you know? So don't be like don't be too upset, because frankly there's not really a lot you can do with her. However, she still is worth going over because she does have her niches, she does have her time, and during my showcase I will talk a little bit about it, but most of the showcase is going to be, you know, the brunt of the work is going to be done by somebody else. And yeah, but without further ado, I'm going to get into it. So she is a striker. She is an attacker. She just has a really high attack stat. And we're going to talk about that here in just a moment. So her S1 Swift Strike attacks an enemy and has a 100% chance to reduce the skill cooldown of Gale of Sword Princess by 1 turn. So being able to reduce the cooldown on her S3 by a turn is kind of nice. It's also her burst, so she can get Ariel for 1 turn at level 1. At level 2, resets Gale of Sword Princess cooldown, and at level 3, changes to enhanced skill, increases damage, and gets an extra turn. Pretty nice, not too bad. Her S2 is Tempest. The passive effect, attack and critical hit chance increase proportional to missing health, max 100%, and just increases her damage dealt to bosses by 50%. Even with increasing her damage dealt to all bosses by 50%, it is still not enough to make her, you know, really shine. Her next one is her S3, Gale of Sword Princess, attacks an enemy and grants Ariel for 2 turns. Before attacking, when already granted Ariel, activates Lil Rafaga. Instead, Lil Rafaga attacks all enemies, ignores 30% of the target's defense. And Ariel is after attacking an enemy, increases priority of the caster by 15%, and changes certain skills. So Gale of Sword Princess gets changed when she has Ariel into Lil Rafaga. Yeah, you're probably wondering, wow, with all of that, what could possibly go wrong? Lots of things. She's just a companion, increased critical damage of the attack by 30%. So just by being involved, everybody's critical damage increases by 30%. And as part of her dual attack, she reduces her S3 by 1 turn. Pretty helpful. So if you notice Tempest, she passively has like the revenge gear effect, except it also works for critical hit chance. There is a small problem with that, in that being is that if she is too powerful, you're not going to get the majority of it. So let's say you're fighting a boss that, you know, is around her power. Like, so let's say my power is totaling 180k, right? But the boss is like 140k. She's not going to shine because she's not going to get the bonuses from her attack boost because she's not taking enough damage to really shine. However, if she was taking more damage, her attack would skyrocket and actually be more powerful if she was actually taking more damage and weaker. So you actually, and this is the scary part, you actually do kind of want to build her kind of frail. You really want to min-max the hell out of her. You want her fast, you want high crit damage, because you don't even really need that much crit chance because of her passive. You need a shit ton of crit damage, you need a shit ton of speed, and you need a shit ton of attack. And you can basically ignore crit chance almost entirely. I would say get to maybe 50% crit chance and stop there, honestly. Because you don't really need anything more than 50% crit chance with her skill, with her Tempest skill. And you don't want that much defense, and you kind of want a good pool of health, so that way she can kind of get the most out of it. Because if you're taking your health and you have 10,000 health, you know, when you're down to 2,000 health, you're getting an 80% bump. But you have 2,000 health. But if you have 5,000 health, that 80% bump is at 1,000 health instead. So you do want a good amount of HP, but her defense and everything you want kind of actually on the lower side, so that way you can actually lower her health faster. But it's complicated and it's hard to get her in that sweet spot of her HP all the time. If you could basically always make it to where she was at like 30% HP, I think she would be one of the most broken characters in the game. Because you have to take whatever her attack stat is and now double it, essentially. You look at her attack stat that I have right now, 4566, now double it. You're going to be at like 9200, and that is a lot of attack. That is 9200 is a crazy amount of attack. However, you can't always have her at 30% HP, and there's no way to actually hurt her, which is the downside. Where'd she go? There she is. But I mean, it is still, she's still strong in the right circumstances. She can definitely launch a couple really strong attacks when she's at low HP. You just have to take that opportunity to use her. Using resurrection characters isn't a bad idea with her, like using Nella or Demi Delta to coronation her back, or give her the revive buff to basically keep bringing her back at like 30% HP in order for her to keep launching those hard hits and then basically dying and then coming back and then dying and then coming back. You can kind of chain it that way if you really want to. But honestly, her damage is inconsistent, and that's the problem. If you've ever played like Smash Brothers, like Smash Bros. Ultimate, you know the issue of like, you can take like Lucina versus Marth. And if you don't know Smash Brothers, this is going to go right over your head. Marth has what's called a tipper, where the closer you hit to the tip of the sword, the more damage it deals and the more knockback you deal. But if you hit closer to the hilt, that's the sour spot. That's going to do less damage, less knockback. That is kind of what she has. She has a sweet spot, but that sweet spot is so hard to hit, it's ridiculous. And her sour spot is massive in comparison. Whereas you look at someone like Belle or Ryu that came out of this patch, and they're more like Lucina. They're very, very consistent. As long as you get their crit chance to 100% and you max out their attack or penetration, they're just going to hit super hard all the time, consistently, 98% of the time. Whereas Ice here is going to hit super, super hard like 10% of the time. So it's a matter of, would you rather have a unit that if you can get her to low HP and keep her there, she's going to do amazing work? Or would you rather have a unit that does pretty solid work all the time? I love Ice as a character. I love her in the anime. I love her in I love her design as a whole. I love that emotionless kind of thing, but then she secretly does have all those emotions. That very tsundere kind of thing, but also kind of not really. I think that as a whole is really cool. However, in this game, she's not very good, but how can you really blame them for not giving you a free 6-star unit that isn't absolutely cracked? I can't blame them at all. Frankly, I'm glad she's in the game. She's cool to use in a couple niche scenarios, and I think that there'll be times where she's super helpful. Like, there are some times in Irregular Extermination, there are some bosses that drop you to like 10% health or something like that, or they do fixed damage equal to 90% or something like that. But if you give her a barrier, she lives it 90% of the time, and then she can hit back and hit hard. I've seen her do, the highest damage I've ever seen her do with my setup is, I think I've seen her do 80k in a hit, which is pretty impressive. Nothing too crazy though, but I have seen her do some 80k, 90k. I think I have seen her do 100k before, but I can't say that for certain. Let's talk about her Transcend stars really quickly. You will get her at 3 stars. At 4 stars, at the start of the battle, she gets Ariel for 1 turn, which is nice. Getting Ariel first turn means you can immediately S3 into her. You can immediately S3 into her enhanced version of that S3. And she gets plus 10% allied team defense. Not bad. Helps her survive a little bit better. But again, you don't want her to survive all the way. You want her to kind of get beat you want her to get beat the fuck up, and then let her do the damage. And then at her final one, plus 50% damage dealt to bosses, which does technically stack with her Tempest, which increases her damage dealt to bosses by 100%. But even with a 100% damage buff, still not enough to make her really shine. And that's the sad part. I really like her, and I still use her. However, she does kind of suck. But I thought she was still worth getting, you know, a little showcase and a breakdown for. Next up is her Desperate, which is funny because, she takes reduced dark damage taken by 20%. Pretty nice. When she gets hit, she increases her priority by 25%, activated once only every 2 turns. And at level 10, when hit, increases priority by 50%. Now, this is something that I don't actually know the answer to. I do not know if the 25% and the 50% stack to where when she gets hit, she gets 75% priority, or if the secondary effect overwrites the first one and just is 50%. If it's 75%, that's kind of cool. Allows you to get some more attacks in. If it's only 50%, that's still kind of cool. All right. I don't know the answer to that, otherwise I would tell you. I have no fucking idea. So, for her talisman, realistically, you want something that's going to buff her attack or her crit rate. I don't have anything really available for that right now, so... but, like, a Sage's Charm for crit damage isn't too bad, especially if you're attacking with an advantageous element. Rogue Charm if you're going to be able to hit those crits all the time. Prophet's Charm is okay, not that great. But yeah, and without further ado, this is the gear set I'm currently using for her. You might recognize a piece of gear. This is actually not the same Ether Amulet that I have on my Ryu. It's actually a completely different one, but I wanted to give her the best chance and give her some penetration as well as some attack. And this was kind of the best set that I had. I like Violent Sledgehammer. Increases damage dealt proportional to the caster's missing health. Again, another way to buff her damage when she's low HP. And then the Revenge Gear. Increases attack proportional to missing health. If you don't understand what I'm trying to do with this character, I don't know if there's any hope for you. Her whole premise is to get the shit beat out of her and then hit really hard. Just this gear set alone plus her, passive skill still isn't enough, you guys. That is how they balanced her very, very well. And unfortunately, she's not as strong as you see her in the anime. But, however, this is kind of what you want gear stat wise. You do want a high amount of crit chance. You want a good amount of attack. You want some decent defense or HP, depending on what you are trying to prioritize. And then some solid speed. You don't need effectiveness. You don't need resilience. These are just some throwaway stats. Again, effectiveness. And then this one isn't bad. I like the Revenge Gear with a penetration accessory. She is a striker, so you do get access to, I believe, what is it called? Death's Hold. If you get a strong penetration Death's Hold with like crit chance, attack, speed, and crit damage, with the penetration accessory, I think it's very, very strong. I think she can be very strong. And she can shine occasionally. Oopsies. So you guys can kind of tell that I've been, in the lab trying to make these characters work. But I like Revenge Gear. Just trying to really capitalize on her losing health, increasing her attack. She gets stronger the weaker she is. Kind of like how the Saiyans work in Dragon Ball, if you really think about it. That'd be a cool collab. But I like her a lot. I like her kit. I just wish she was better. Unfortunately, she's not. And I'll showcase her in the showcase video and kind of compare her damage to the main light damage dealer we have for bosses. That way you can kind of really get a good comparison. Because unfortunately, the dark bosses we have aren't known for a lot of their damage. They're mostly known for their debuffs. So it makes it difficult to really showcase her strong offensive prowess in a boss fight that is mostly debuffs. You know what I mean? But with that, I appreciate you guys for watching. I will see you guys in the next one. And yeah, can't wait to show you guys in the showcase. Peace.